Joining me right now in a First on Fox interview is Senate Judiciary Committee member, Senate Finance Committee member, and Senate Agricultural Committee member, and Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley. Senator, it's a pleasure to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Maria, thank you.
We have a lot to talk about this morning. I want to get right to it. First, let's talk about what a Senate impeachment trial will look like. What are your expectations, sir?
Well, what we don't know is the length of it. Clinton was 5 weeks. We don't happen to think this would be that long. But and it could be very short, but the very least, we're going to have to listen to the prosecutors who come over as members of the House of Representatives to present the articles of impeachment and the reason the president should be found guilty. And then we listen, I don't know how long that takes, but maybe a few days, and then a few days to listen to the president's lawyers in defense. And then what goes on beyond that, I don't have any way of telling you, but the whole month of January is set aside for business that, in all reality, under the rules of the Senate, nothing else can go on when you're sitting as jurors under impeachment.
Yeah, and a whole host of those senators don't want to be in that room because they want to go to the Iowa caucuses. We should point out, right?
Sometimes we wonder if that might not shorten it up a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. Now, I spoke with your colleague, Senator Lindsey Graham, this weekend on Sunday Morning Futures, and he said he wants to get this over with as quickly as possible. But, sir, I've got to ask you, my viewers want to see accountability, and they want to see some of these people questioned because they don't believe Adam Schiff. Senate Republicans are preparing to skip calling any witnesses in an impeachment trial. Why? Why aren't you calling Adam Schiff, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, the whistleblower? What's the problem?
Well, I think the main reason is that we want to make sure that there's a fair hearing on the articles of impeachment. The extent to which there's a chance that that it wouldn't be close in making a decision. In other words, not very close to getting 2/3 vote, maybe not even getting a majority vote. Why would you spend a lot of time when we're getting very little legislation done? And why do we want to waste a lot of time? Now, the point being that if a lot of things that need to be brought out aren't brought out because we don't call those people in, that could be more of a public relations issue than a constitutional issue.
I understand. I mean, look, you want to get business done, and you've wanted to get business done your entire career. And what strikes me is we've got so much going on this week, from the IG and the testimony today of Michael Horowitz to the impeachment. None of it has anything to do with the people's business. That's why we're going to get to USMCA in a minute. We'll talk about that coming up. But sir, my viewers have followed this story in terms of the cabal of individuals at the top of the FBI and the CIA who tried to put their finger on the scale and take Donald Trump down. And they're wondering why Chairman Graham has not called people down to testify. We've got this graphic here, Web of Entrapment, which we look at all of the informants that ran into people like Carter Page and George Papadopoulos. We got the IG report yesterday, and Bill Barr said that it makes it clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that were insufficient to justify the steps taken. So we are looking right now at Stefan Halper's Web of Entrapment, and I know on your website you have all the money that Stefan Halper was paid. He was paid more than $1 million over a year to supposedly write reports on China and Russia, when in fact it sounds like he was an informant trying to trip up campaign staffers of the Trump administration, sir.
Well, if for fact, all of that came out. First of all, let me answer your first issue. Will this be just Horowitz and nothing else? I can't speak for Chairman Graham, but I believe that he's going to have several other hearings involving other people to get more of these facts out on the ground. Then in regard to Halper, or whether it was Papadopoulos, or whether it was Carter Page, or whoever you might say, always lower level people that weren't in the middle of the Trump campaign, but they were used as an excuse to get court orders so that they could spy on the Trump campaign, and the Trump campaign was spied on. And the issue here isn't just spying on the Trump campaign. The issue is that there's a lot of constitutional rights that were compromised to get reasons from the court to spy on the Trump campaign. And if it could happen to Trump, it could happen to you, Maria, or anybody else in America. Their civil liberties are potentially violated because of the FBI having political opposition. At least the leaders of the FBI having political opposition to the president and wanting to keep him from being president. Even after he became president, finding ways to get him thrown out of office.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And that is why I am outraged by Adam Schiff getting people's phone records and sending them out into the public. Whether it's Rudy Giuliani, journalist John Solomon, whether it's Devin Nunes, so that the public can speculate, oh, why did John Solomon call Rudy Giuliani? Why was Devin Nunes calling the White House? As if there's something nefarious there. Are you going to subpoena Adam Schiff's phone records? Will Chairman Graham take this issue up, given the fact that there was a major breach of privacy when Adam Schiff put all of those phone records into the public square?
Not only maybe a hearing, but that's going to be a decision by Chairman Graham. Whether that'll happen, I don't know.
You're going to take the chairmanship, right? You're going to take the chairmanship next round?
Yes, I am. If we're in the majority, I'll be chairman of Judiciary. But right
as
now,
chairman,
that's
you'll
his
have the
decision.
gavel. You'll have the gavel.
Well, yes. I don't know 2 years from now how much of this stuff will be relevant.
Okay.
But anyway, the issue is, should a member of Congress be able to get all of these records without the protection of constitutional rights? And maybe we have to change the laws to do that.
Yes, yes. Okay, we will be watching that, sir, and we're counting on you for justice here. Let's turn to the big news of the day, and that's USMCA. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced that House Democrats have, in fact, reached a deal with the Trump administration on the trade agreement. Later in the day, it was signed by officials from Canada and Mexico. The Senate might not take this up until after the impeachment trial. Is that right? When are you expecting to take this up?
Well, according to the leader, that's the indication I got because of impeachment and because of the holidays coming up. I made a speech a week ago Monday that if it didn't get done by last Friday, we wouldn't be able to get it done this year. And my prediction has actually come out. It's going to get through the House of Representatives. That's the most important thing, to give confidence in the people that it's eventually going to become law. And we have a new treaty that's a very good treaty with Mexico and Canada, replacing NAFTA. It's very good for manufacturing, very good for services. It's very, very good for agriculture. And also, there's a lot of things that are covered in it that weren't even negotiable because they didn't even exist, like data trade and things like that 25 years ago when we first started out with NAFTA.
Yeah. You know, what's so different a year later? Because the president signed this with the co-signers, Mexico and Canada, a year ago in 2018. And Nancy Pelosi said what was first handed to us, the Democrats, was a non-starter. She says she changed the whole thing. Please explain.
Okay. First of all, 4 months of the president having tariffs on steel and aluminum with Mexico and Canada, that held up Canada and Mexico moving ahead, and we wouldn't be able to move ahead here. By May, we finally got the president talked out of those tariffs so we can move it to the Congress of the United States. And then once starting in July, there were negotiations with Democrats in the House of Representatives. They weren't satisfied with environment, labor, enforcement, and some intellectual property stuff. And so that had to be negotiated over the last 5 months, and it was up and down.
Yeah.
But eventually it was announced yesterday. And you also, when you make changes in it, you have to work with Mexico and Canada for them to accept those changes. So we finally got it.
Pat Toomey said he's a no. Are you expecting any pushback here? Do you think this passes and gets to the president's desk for signage?
Yeah. It'll just as soon as we get done with impeachment, it'll pass the Senate a lot easier than it passes the House of Representatives.
Why wait till after impeachment, sir?
Because of what we have to do this week and next week before the holidays to get the government's business down so you don't shut down government, and then impeachment, which we have no control over. The House is going to pass it next week. We have to take it up under the rules of the Senate. It can't, nothing else can interfere with it, so you can't take it up until after that.
Yeah,
now, if we wanted to be here on December 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, we could probably get it done.
Now, why should you spend Christmas in Washington? Come on. I mean, you deserve a Christmas holiday with your family, but none of the 12 appropriations bills have been enacted. If funding is not passed by next Thursday, the result is a full government shutdown. Are we going to have a government shutdown, sir?
One of two ways we won't have a government shutdown. One, we either have a gigantic compromise at the end to fund government through September 30th, or we're going to have a continuing resolution that'll take us over till February. Well, either way, government won't be shut down 35 days like it was a year ago.
Well, that is good news for sure. All right, let me get to another trade deal, sir, because the U.S. stands ready to slap China with another round of tariffs on Sunday. The two sides working to reach a phase one trade deal, but there are so many reports about the tariffs being delayed. The White House trade advisor Peter Navarro said not so fast. Listen to him last night on Fox Business. Watch this.
It's the president's decision, and I've got no indication that he's going to do anything other than have a great deal or put the tariffs on.
What do you want to see here, Senator, in terms of China and the United States?
Well, a conversation I had Monday that I won't say who it was with, but I didn't deal with tariffs, but it would tell me that tariffs will not be imposed on December the 15th, and that we could possibly be close to an agreement with China. Beyond that, I don't have much more information than that, but it was always very much a positive conversation about reaching a phase one agreement with China.
I guess the bigger issue here is this is a debate over values, isn't it, Senator? I mean, we're a democracy that's communists. I mean, they've been stealing intellectual property for decades. We want the rule of law. How do you do a partnership when you've got such different values between two countries? Do you really think we're going to do anything more than a skinny deal, something that just involves buying more agriculture by the Chinese and getting a little more access into the 1.4 billion person population in China for American companies?
Well, we get phase one in this Trump 4 years, and then if he's reelected, we'll get a follow-on agreements.
Okay.
China's economy is hurting more than ours, and ours is very, very good. That ought to scare China, that we've got a lot of staying power that they don't have, and we'll get further agreements. Will we get everything we want? I think it's difficult to say we get everything we want. But remember, it was broke up in May last year because we want China to change their laws.
Yep.
We don't have to change our laws. It's very important that they change their laws so that when we go there, we have the rule of law on international trade, just like we do, particularly protecting intellectual property
Yes.
and trade secrets.
Absolutely. Senator, before you go, final question here on USMCA. You just said the economy is good. What does USMCA do for the economy? Tell me the impact that this is going to have.
$34 billion of investment in automobile manufacturing, 174 million new jobs, getting dairy into Canada that NAFTA would not allow that, getting our best wheat into Canada, having 50% of cars manufactured in the United States or manufactured in North America paying at least $16 an hour instead of $3 an hour in Mexico, and 75% of the content of an automobile being domestic content.
Right, made in North America. Great. Senator, it's good to have you this morning. We so appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Chuck Grassley joining us this morning in D.C.